So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. This is the session devoted to innovating cities and regions interested in applying Horizon 2020 projects under SC5. First and foremost, I'm Bernat Hugo. I'm a project advisor at the ASME, which is the executive agency of the European Commission, dealing with different projects, including the one that have a specific urban focus. I would like to thank you all for the interest in our session, because this was a session that we tried to create, trying to gather the interest of local authorities. So we have in Horizon several stakeholders, and we're tackling more and more urban components across several topics of the Horizon 2020, and we thought it could be useful for cities and regional authorities to have a devoted session to dig into not only thematic issues, but also financial and administrative issues, which are as important as the scientific ones when you're putting up a proposal. We are very lucky to have three very good panelists. I have Camille Lepanet, who is a NCP, National Counterpoint for Belgium, working at Brussels. Claire Baffer, who is a project coordinator at Eurocities, and she has in particular the focus on the environmental projects, so she's well placed to work with cities that are actually tackling the environmental and climatic issues. And we also have the pleasure to have with us Gabriele Corso, who is a colleague of mine at EASME, who is very knowledgeable about financial issues that we actually encounter, not only at the project evaluation stage, but also during the grant agreement preparation. So I guess the three speakers will allow us to have a reflection on the key issues that are at stake. Although, as I said before, urban issues are across the Horizon Social Challenge 5 mentioned in different topics. I think here today we try to gather tips that are particularly valuable for three main topics. SC513, which is a research and innovation action on international cooperation for sustainable urbanization with CELAC countries, but in particular the two innovation actions, namely SC514 on the visionary integrated solution for health and well-being in cities, and SC520 looking at cultural heritage in historic cities and cultural landscapes. So those local authorities and cities interested in applying in these topics will hopefully found good tips and pieces of advice from the three speakers. Last point from my side as a chair, there will be Slido, so we will try to gather questions through Slido, so do not feel shy, put up your question. At the end of the three presentations, we will show, thanks to the help of my colleague Christophe, the number of questions we got, and we will ask you to vote for the one that you want to ask as a high majority to the three speakers. But we also welcome questions from the audience, so do not feel shy if you haven't written your question through Slido, because you will have the opportunity to do so live. So without further ado, I call Camille for the first presentation, and I thank you once again, everyone, for the interest in this session. Please be interactive. These sessions be creative for you, so it's the right moment to actually make the most out of it. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thank you, Ugo, for inviting me to present. So I'm going to make this presentation as NCP for the region of Brussels, and also member of NCP Care, the network of NCP for Environment that was presented earlier this morning. But I also get actually a lot of insight from my previous work at Brûlot Calice, which is the Association of the Municipalities of Brussels. And you have also a representative in the room. And also from the presentation from Ina Olmeyer from last year, which actually you can still see online. She dared to say a lot of very interesting points. I'll try to be as daring as she was. Because actually there's something that struck me a lot in my working with municipalities, is often the gap that you can find between you as cities and regions and what is expected from you in Horizon 2020. And the idea that to try to fill this gap, but you have to know yourself and know where you need to go to fill this gap. So often, cities and municipalities, you will look at your local constituency electorate, it's normal. You have your own goals, but think that Horizon 2020 is aiming at getting a European dimension. That's very important. Second point is, be honest. A lot of you are looking for money for infrastructures. That's not what you're going to find in Horizon 2020, which aim at fostering innovation and knowledge development. So it's another goal. Same, should not focus on funding, but actually there's lots of non-financial benefits in participating to Horizon 2020. And it'll be getting your name getting known as a city, but getting lessons from other cities, learning from each other, sharing your knowledge. It's a lot of gains, not just the money. Last thing, you experts in public procurement, in Horizon 2020 will be an asset for you to handle the EU money, but you also have to get to know that actually you have to collaborate also with SMEs, with other types of actors, and you would not need public procurement to work with them. So it's another kind of relationship with her, but it's also very interesting, and that's why actually you can broaden your horizon with Horizon 2020. So my first tip is actually to prepare yourself for EU projects in general. First, have a strategy for your city, what you want to aim at, and then think, do the European projects fit in this strategy or not? And then it's really a criteria for you to select which projects you want to get in. Think about projects, not in terms of funding. I'll repeat it several times. You have to have people who know English, and who know English well, capable of writing, signing decision in English, so also in the top level of your administration. You have to have internal procedures ready, because at some points, like not only you writing the projects, but at some points people will have to sign in the participant portal for you. So it's also, you also need to involve your hierarchy, your political level. So think ahead and prepare these procedures. For instance, your peak number, you can do it much earlier than just the last minute when you need to enter projects. Prepare your peak number much earlier on. Be prepared to learn. And learning also involves doing the job yourself. I know some people tend to use consultant. That's a possibility if you're rushing. But actually, you will also need time to brief them, to give them the information. And then you will not learn yourself how to prepare the projects. Start little. There's a lot of other EU funding, like URBAC, Interreg, that can help you on the ground to learn doing EU projects. And then Horizon 2020 is much easier when you've already have this experience of previous EU grants. And involve the political level is key to have their backing and to know, because you will spend time on the projects, so they need to know that you are involved there. Second stereotype is plan in advance. Actually, you know that's the usual scheme, but actually for an administration, you have long procedures inside, so be prepared as well for this and use all the time. Now it's time to get into the project, not 1 month before the deadline. Then it's much too late, especially for a city or a region. And also use the whole timing of the second stage procedures. Even before you know that the project is selected or not, you can already start working on the second stage. Of course, you have to find partners for Horizon 2020 projects. First, start with your local partner. Actually, the university, your local university can help you. They are used to grants from Horizon 2020. Higher level of power, like your region, your national ministry, can also support you, especially if you need to get later on authorization, for instance, for plans that need to be contracted and so forth. So involve them much ahead. You will have to find other partners, international partners in other cities, and that's here that it's good that you come to these events, that you're members of associations of cities like Eurocities, but there are for smaller ones like Eurotones or Climate Alliance. There are several associations of cities, so you can find the one matching your needs. The Covenant of Mayors is also a good point to start. And the key thing that you have is just when you select, look for partner, don't only look at the name of the city, look in terms of competence of what they can bring to the projects. You also have to have a coordinator which is really experienced and viable, like so that they really submit the projects in the end. And remember that the bottom line is that you have to find people you would like to work with during a few years, time of the projects, if the project is selected. So that's also a human dimension, and that's why taking part to event like this, getting to know the people in person is also important to find partners. Get support, that first tip. First, your national contact point. We've talked about this morning. NCP Care, the network of national contact point for environment, also provide a partner search tool and useful guides that were explained earlier on by Ule in the session this morning. There are other tools to help you find partners, for instance, city networks, as already mentioned. To look for, because in Horizon 2020 you will have to find also partners which are not from cities, and there the Enterprise Europe network can help you find SSME with a specific competence and so forth. So there is an online database, but you can also contact your local Enterprise Europe network office to get more information about this. For fifth tip is prepare well your budget. There will be a session dedicated, a presentation more on this point later. But I know that there is a 100% financing rate for you in Horizon 2020, but remember, key point, infrastructure normally are not funded by Horizon 2020. It's only the depreciation, it's only for the length of the projects, and it's only if necessary for the projects. And it's only in one call that there is a special rules allowing some kinds of funding, but in limited 20% of the budget. We'll get more into details later on. So don't go for projects for the money for infrastructure, really. And so to sum up the messages, prepare yourself for EU projects in general. Plan in advance, look for partners, get supports, and prepare well your budget. And last thoughts, dream. It's Horizon 2020, but be realistic, keep your foot on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Camille, for the very hands-on presentation. And I'll give you the floor to Claire Baffer from Eurocities. I just want to say something that I didn't mention at the beginning. All the presentation will be available online, so you're not obliged. I mean, if you want, you can take a picture, but you're going to share all the presentations, so you will have them after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo, for the introduction. So my name is Claire Baffert. I work for Eurocities. We are the network of big European cities, so cities of more than 250,000 inhabitants. And we are active in all fields of urban development. So I'm working on environment, but in the room you also have my colleague Julie Hervé at the back of the room, waving for you. So you can come and talk to her if you want to talk about culture or cultural heritage. We are running about 10 Horizon 2020 projects at the moment, and we also inform our members of the upcoming calls for proposals, and we also help them find partners. So my presentation is based on this experience. So the first thing is to ask yourself when you're preparing for a call, why does the EU provide Horizon 2020 funding? Because all the calls, they are part of a policy cycle. So the projects, they help implementing the policies, but they also help informing the policies. So it's always important to try to identify those policies and to show the relevance of your proposals for these policies. It's really two important steps. in blue, you can see some of the activities that Horizon 2020 projects can provide and deliver to support the EU policies. For a city officer, I know it's sometimes hard to navigate through the different EU funding programs that all have different processes, different deadlines. So here's a tool that you can use, provided by the Covenant of Mayors. It's an interactive funding guide on climate and energy, and you can find here all the EU funding programs, including Horizon 2020. It's free of access. You have the URL at the bottom, and it's regularly updated with the latest information on the open calls. Some usual difficulties for cities. It's often hard to strike the balance between your local priorities, as Camille said, and the EU added value. So it's something that is important to think of. And also, we know that activities such as capitalization and exploitation, business models creation, background research and data collection is sometimes hard to undertake. So we'll also provide some tips to do that. How to make a good project proposal. Some very general tips. First, it's crucial to know about the call well in advance. So consult the Horizon 2020 website regularly. You can know the topics sometimes 2-3 years in advance, so it's important to have a look at that regularly. Internally, it's crucial to plan your financial and your HR resources within your organization and to identify the right expertise that you need, both inside your organization, because you might have to deal with to involve different departments of your city, both thematic experts, but also finance or HR experts. So identify the expertise that you need. And of course, try to do some background research to identify the EU added value. How to answer a call? First step is really to read all the program documents. So the call for proposal, but also the program guide, the Horizon manual, the application form, the policy background, and try to summarize all this information and make a to-do list. Read the call. It can seem obvious, but actually it's not. It's really important to analyze the call title. And if I want to give an example, we know that the call titles are sometimes very long, like this one that I leave you read. 3 lines for one title, but every word counts. So it's really important to make an analysis of each word of the call, because it can be really useful to understand the objectives of the call and what is expected out of the proposals. Of course, follow the structure of the call, the challenges, the scope, the expected impacts, and really try to determine the objectives of the call and the expected flow of the project. Look at all the details on budget, on deadlines, type of action, and other specific rules that are specific to each proposal. Then how to write your application. The golden rule is really to be as concrete as possible. You must imagine yourself implementing the project when you are writing it. So be very precise and specific when you're describing one action. Describe why you're doing this action, by whom it will be undertaken, where, when, and how. So really try to put as many details as possible. That's really important, especially then to determine the quality and efficiency of the implementation. The challenge, as Camille said, is to be both innovative and convincing, but at the same time realistic. So don't promise things you're not sure you will be able to deliver, and especially when you're looking at your budget. It's important to study, of course, the selection criteria. You can do the exercise yourself, or after having written your proposal, ask yourself, okay, how does it score according to the criteria? And try to put yourself in the shoes of the evaluator who doesn't know your project, who doesn't know your city. The three main criteria, I think they were presented this morning, so I won't go in details through them, but they are all really important. You can have an excellent project in your city, but if you don't think of how you will disseminate your project results, the impact will be very limited. And you can have an excellent and impactful project, but if you have not allocate the task appropriately to each partners, then you will score low in the last criteria. So it's really important to consider all of them. As for building a consortium, important to find the partners with the skills that you need. So really try to map the expertise that is needed. It's important to strike a good balance between some local partners that are important because first you know them, so it's easy to collaborate with them, but also they help building on the results of the project after the end of the funding, but also the international dimension that is crucial to be considered. So strike a good balance between those. It's important to work across different departments of your city, especially for the new calls like the SC514 on health and well-being in cities. It's important to involve different departments of your administration. Consult your local partners for their needs, then your proposal will be more relevant. Do tenders to select the local businesses you want to work with. And work with your local university. Camille already said it, but I think it's crucial because they can really help you with data collection, with research, with business models. So to finish with, 5 last tips. First, it can be useful to develop a standard form to help you assess whether your organization is able to get involved in a project proposal. So then you can ask yourself, okay, are the objectives of the call fitting my city priorities? Do I have the financial resources to get involved? Do I have the staff and the time to work on that proposal? And this form can be a really useful tool to make your decision and also to convince your colleagues and your local politicians. Second, map the projects that have already been undertaken in that field, then you will avoid replication. Third, study the policy behind the call, as we said in the beginning. Fourth, it can be very important to talk to the program officer responsible for the call, so take the opportunity of this info day to do that. And yeah, that's actually linked to tip number 5, attend the program workshops or the info days. So thank you very much for your attention. I remain available if you have any questions after this session or during the lunch break. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire, for another very clear presentation, more hands-on from a network of cities. I think what is important to recall from your presentation is the look at the different funding available, in particular the Convent of Mayor tool, because often our call have, in particular at the end of the project, the call text, the need for the applicants to demonstrate the capacity to leverage of fundings. So in order to do the leverage of fundings, you need to know what funding are available. So I guess one of the tools that we have, like the Convent of Mayor tool, is a very good option. There is also openly tools at the DG Regio webpage on the city dedicated city page where you can scroll on all the EU funding available and what fits best your project or how you can create connection with available funding. I think the cross-sectorial for not only SC514 but also SC520, so work across department in the city. And last but not least, details, in particular for the innovation actions when it comes to the deployment of integrated innovative solutions. I think this were indeed very important aspects. I give now the floor to Gabriele, which is our financial officer at EASME, and I think Gabriele's presentation is particularly valid when it comes to provide you with an internal, more institutional perspective of how we indeed look at costs that can be declared, subcontracting and other important requirements of calls in general, but also the city calls that we have now out at the moment. Gabriele, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ugo. As per my role in the agency, I will give you an overview of what are the cost categories included in the budget, therefore the Annex 2 of a grant agreement, the Annex 2 of your project. So we have 4 main cost category normally in a budget, and these 4 categories are direct personnel costs, subcontracting costs, other direct costs, and indirect costs. These are all parts of your budget, and the budget is supposed to be an estimation of your costs. The costs have to be, of course, eligible in the budget, and to be eligible, they have to be actually incurred by the beneficiary. They have to be within the duration of the project, meaning between the starting date and the ending date of a project. They have to be appearing in the Annex 2 as an estimation, and related, of course, to the action, verifiable and identifiable, and in compliance with national laws, of course, on taxes, labor, and social security. And it goes without saying that all the costs that are in the budget have to be always reasonable. What are the funding rates? In these topics that we are highlighting here in this session, I mentioned the 2 relevant types of action, which are the research and innovation actions that cover 100% of eligible costs, and innovation actions that are funding the 70% of eligible costs, except for non-profit legal entities, which are entitled to receive the 100% reimbursement. We start one by one with the categories, and I start with the personnel costs. And as you see in the slide, the personnel costs are what exactly? Are the costs for employees, the costs for a natural person working under a direct contract, what is the so-called in-house consultant, and could be the cost for personnel who is seconded by a third party against payment. And of course, we have also the categories in this, the subcategories of SME owners without salary, and might be also the case that in a consortium you have a partner, a beneficiary, which is a natural person. What is eligible for personnel costs? It's also pretty clear that it's the salary and all the taxes and the social security contributions that are linked to the salary. What is not included, basically all costs that are not eligible and not belonging to this category, but also what is called additional remuneration, with an exception. Additional remuneration are not eligible except for non-profit legal entities and for a ceiling up to 8,000 euros per person per year. So with a full-time contract, of course. And this is the overview of what the personnel costs might appear in a budget. Going to the following categories, I grouped together the other direct costs and the direct costs of subcontracting. Why? Because both of them, for claiming those costs, you have to demonstrate, and to let them being eligible, you have to demonstrate the best value for money. But what is the difference between contracts, which is listed in the Article 10 of the Annotated Model Grant Agreement, and subcontracts, which is the Article 13 of the Annotated Model Grant Agreement. The difference basically is that when you purchase subcontracting, you purchase goods, works, or services which are part of the action tasks and which are included in the Annex 1. For contracts, which is again a contract for goods, works, and services, it's a contract which is needed for the implementation of these action tasks, so it doesn't belong to the action tasks themselves. So this is the main difference, but it's worth to say that we normally accept the standard practices of a beneficiary when properly used also in the project. And we normally accept also commercial agreements that are already in place, and that therefore framework contracts that have been already stipulated by the beneficiary previously and have are already consolidated. And another common error, I would say, that quite often we find in the proposals, it's that applicants think that naming the supplier in the contract could give an added value and could give automatically the eligibility of this cost. This is not, because the best value for money has always to be proved. So this is basically what I wanted to highlight in the difference between contracts and subcontracts, but it's also worth to say that subcontracts, of course, are used only for a limited part of the action. Of course, a beneficiary cannot subcontract the majority of its action tasks. And also, it's really important, it's not possible to subcontract to a project partner, which is also happening time to time, but it's not possible, and these costs, unfortunately, will be declared not eligible. So, concerning the specific call, I would say that contracting authorities have also to be aware and must moreover comply with the applicable national laws of the specific country on public procurement, sorry. So this is also important when you select a subcontracting and when you claim the costs for a subcontracting. I would like now to go something a bit more into the detail for something which is probably relevant for these topics, and this is the part other direct costs, that in H2020 sometime it's not that evident to understand, because first of all, okay, I'm still talking about a framework program which is almost expired, but still in some projects existing, and in the knowledge of some coordinators is still existing, so FP7. And there are few important differences between the two. And in H2020, it's really relevant, the fact that you have to make a proper distinction between contracts and subcontracts, because what could be before in FP7 be considered as a subcontract now in H2020 and in the next Horizon Europe will be for sure indicated as a contract. So what are the other direct costs? The other direct costs are mainly the travel costs during the duration, of course, of the project, the equipment costs and the other goods and services. I would highlight, especially for this call, the equipment cost. The items here must apply the depreciation rules. Depreciation rules that I see that most of the time in the financial statements or in the use of resources are not well detailed, and depreciation rules that are really important. Depreciation rules are applicable to equipment, but also to infrastructure. If I might make a reference to the SC5 topic 14, 2019, in this topic there is a particular condition, and the particular condition is that the costs for construction and installation of infrastructure targeted interventions shall not constitute more than 20% of the total eligible cost. This is really important because this has to also be matching not only the rules, but also the two annexes have to match. The Annex 1, the narrative part, has to find indicated in the section 3.4 for other direct costs exactly this, and the Annex 2, of course, has to indicate this amount with the specific ceiling. So this 20% is really important for this action, and all these categories, except from the subcontracting, are then forming the indirect costs, because in H2020 the indirect costs are a flat rate, are the 25% of all the direct costs in the budget, excluding the subcontracting. So this is a novelty again compared to the previous framework program. In this, this is one of the last slides. I wanted to highlight the different kinds of third parties that might take part in a project. It's really useful, in my opinion. It's a table that you can find in the annotated model grant agreement, and it shows clearly how there are third parties which are clearly working on action tasks, and there are third parties that are clearly not working in action tasks, but only providing the services and the resources needed for the action. So this is also a pretty interesting table that allows you to distinguish all the different partners that you can include in the project. Just to conclude, these are really relevant links that to the Bible of H2020, which is the participant portal, of course, the annotated model grant agreement, which is of course always updated with the last version, the online manual, and the link to the research inquiry service, which is normally the first step when you need clarification, information, or whenever you have questions urgent questions to ask for the submission of your proposal for all the applicants. And this is the first line of the Commission, which is going to give you a fast answer within 15 days delay. So for my presentation, it's now over. And I might also answer to your questions if you have specific ones, I guess, in a later stage.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Gabriele, for this, I think, very comprehensive presentation, which we believed was needed in particular because, I know that certain people in the city authority that put up a proposal may have more the thematic, but what Gabriele and also Claire said, to speak with the financial people, because the implementation part of the proposal is as important as the other two parts on excellence and impact. So if you make confusion about category of costs and how you declare them, you may lose points in the implementation part. So make sure that that part is as well addressed as the other ones. So we start late, a bit later today due to the delay of the previous session. So we have more or less 12, 13 minutes for questions. I would like to, the first question we got from Slido, yes, all the presentation will be available. I don't know if we have any other question coming from Slido, Christophe? No? So could I please open the floor to anyone that has any burning question to any of the speakers here today? Yeah, the floor is yours. Can you please click and say who you are?
Thank you. Ülle Napa from Estonian Research Council. I just wanted to make sure, like with 20% of its infrastructure cost, it's calculated per project or per partner?
Yeah, it's calculated per partner. Per project, sorry, but not... yes, for sure, per project.
Any other question? Yeah.
My name is Esteban Pelayo. I work in EURADA, the European Association of Development Agencies. I wonder the third-party reporting, how it's done, because normally it's a small budget. I wonder if they are linked to a partner and the partner could report on their behalf, or they are offline templates to make the report and then the coordinator gather them.
In this respect, we have to differentiate between linked third parties and third parties providing in-kind contributions. Linked third parties are duly registered in the system, and they are participating and listed in the participant portal in Sigma. Therefore, they have to submit to the linked beneficiary their own financial statement, and it's like if they were a partner. For in-kind contributions, it's different because they are not appearing in the list of the consortium, but it's the beneficiary responsible to declare the costs, the appropriated costs.
Yeah.
If I may, this sounds a bit, what are these third parties and so on? Very concretely, this is a tool that you can use in a metropole with different districts or municipalities inside the metropole. So because in a big Horizon 20 projects, you cannot have like the 18 municipalities of Brussels involved in Horizon 20 projects when there is already different cities, but you could link different, there is one going in the projects as beneficiary, and then it could have linked third parties or other associations, or you can also involve other level of powers through an advisory committee and so forth. You're not obliged to go all together as beneficiaries on the projects, and that's why there are different types of association possible. So use this, be creative, and here your NCP, and especially because we all have a legal and financial NCP, can help you sort out which is the best construction for you, matching your configuration.
Any other question?
Fernando from the Regional Development Agency of the Valencian country. Rather than a question, it's just a reflection. I tend to find the procedures, the administrative procedures that have been presented as rigorous and meticulous as those of the average European country. Do you have the same feeling? I mean, I think it is seldom that if you stick to your own national and regional procedures, you will not be on the safe side as regards specific procedures for H2020?
Well, maybe as a chair, I mean, as I always say, when programs are out, in particular this one, we could philosophing on the nature of procedure. Horizon 2020 is at the last stage, so I would avoid doing that. But what I like more actually as a practicality is to make sure that, you know, the rules are there, cannot be changed at the moment, but make sure that you actually use the different channels that are indeed available. I mean, we've been starting with Horizon even before the program was launched, to make sure that through the different channels of NCPs, network of cities, and advisory board, actually the things could be clarified. So I think with what you have, you need to cope. But, you know, at this stage, I don't think, you know, it is also about capacity building. And it's, I mean, this at least is the Horizon 2020 has a peculiarity, it's a research and innovation process. So of course, you need to deal also with procedures that are might not familiar for cities, which were much more used to apply for structural funding or other type of funding within the EU.
And it's I mean, Gabriele said it also. You don't have to invent new rules as well. There's, I mean, the EU recognizes a lot of standard procedures regarding depreciation, your travel costs, and actually it's don't invite new rules because then you will have problems with audit. So it's actually better to keep your rules, but be aware of the different specificities. And for this, your NCP can help you, like at the beginning of the projects, point out, beware of this, beware of that, and explain you what to.
And just a clarification. For several issues like the ethics, when data are collected and so on, we always stick to the rules that participants should actually collect data and respect ethics rules that are applied within the member states where the data are collected. So we do actually refer a lot to rules that are applied at member state level and regional level. Another question? Yeah. Can you summarize the changes in eligible cost and budget in general that will be introduced in Horizon Europe? Well, this is something that we should avoid, definitely speculation. Horizon Europe is in the process of being designed, and you know, we are still talking about the governance, and therefore it's definitely far too soon to go in the participation rules and financial rules. So I will definitely avoid that question for Gabriele, because no one of us actually is in the position. It's still a very political debate that we should definitely avoid at this stage. So, is there any other burning question? In any case, you can use, and please do, as Gabriele pointed out, the online tool if you have any other question. We are collecting questions on the topic. Don't feel shy, make the most of the use. I mean, the idea of our session was also to give you a bit of an overview of the different channels where the information is available, the NCP Care, the network of cities, not only Eurocities, there are other networks, because we need to be fair, and, you know, like ICLEI or others, there is the Convent of Mayor, where, as you've seen, there are even tools that give you concrete advice. And of course, we are here, our events are open, we have online tools, there is the participant portal. Make sure that you read the rules. Sounds simplistic, but is, you know, go ahead and familiarize yourself with Horizon rules, and things are complicated when you're not familiar with. So you need also to do a bit of homework when applying to this program. I hope that the session was, you know, useful for you. It was designed with regional and local authorities in mind. So we also appreciate your feedback. So if you do have any suggestion for improvement or for issue that you would have liked to see addressed, do not hesitate to contact us. And without further ado, I really thank you all for your participation and attention, and also the speaker for the fantastic presentation. Thanks.